Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you're returning, thank you as always for being here. We've got more Christmas in July, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. For this project, I have a wreath form in the shape of a candy cane from the Dollar Tree, a whole bunch of chenille stems in red and white, and then I have the Deco-mesh also from the Dollar Tree. I'm just showing you that those were exactly the same, even though they have completely different seasonal labels on them. All the Deco-mesh from the Dollar Tree, I think, to my knowledge, appears to be the same. So if you pick it up during different seasons, you can still use it together. But I'm going to start out by adding chenille stems to all of the joints on this wreath form. I had started out just doing 2 at each section. And then as I worked through it, I decided it really needed to have more. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. But I'm alternating the red and the white chenille stems throughout the form because candy cane. I'm gonna alternate the mesh as well. But here I'm taking some of the mesh just to kind of see how much it's going to cover the form, and that was where I decided that I needed to kind of supplement here to create additional bumps to just give more coverage for the form. And then as I was going through it, I realized around that curve, there's a lot of territory to kind of cover. So I opted to add in some additional chenille stems at kind of like the midway point. And then I'm going to be using some hot glue to keep those in place because they don't have the crossbar to use to kind of anchor them. So I'll show you that in just, oh, here it is. So I just added a little drop of hot glue there and then slid the chenille stem down over the hot glue. So just adding hot glue at like the midway point and then making sure that the chenille stem is anchored. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. I think this time I kind of added the hot glue and then twisted the chenille stem around it, but either way works. So now I am ready to start adding in my mesh. I'm going to start with that end, and I'm just tucking the end towards the inside so that it won't be visible. It won't like stick out funny. Just using the twist ties to anchor that down, and then I'm going to be creating just little bubbles of mesh. And I'll anchor the mesh at every single chenille stem along here, using the red for the red, and then I'll be using the white for the white. Now, you could trim this off once you got to the end, but I am opting not to do that because I do have the section in between the red and the white that needs to be camouflaged again. So I'm going to opt to bring this kind of across on a diagonal from where I ended with the red chenille stems, and I'm going to bring it up to that white stem on the opposite side. And it's just going to help to camouflage my frame, create a little bit more fullness. And now I'm going to do the same thing going diagonal across up to the red, and I'm going to work my way back across with little bubbles. And I'm going to do this all the way up the wreath frame, all the way around until I have all of the red set. And then you'll see that I'm going to work my way back down with the white. Now, this is only one way of doing this. There are a lot of different things you can do with the Deco-mesh. Sometimes I'll cut it into 12-inch sections and let it roll up on itself, bend those in half and secure them kind of at that fold with the chenille stems. I think you would probably need a lot more mesh to do that, and I would probably put a lot more chenille stems in there also in different sections. So similar to how I created another joint at the curvature up at the top, I would probably do that throughout the wreath form if I were to do it that way. I could be mistaken. Maybe it would take up a little bit more room and be a little bit more filling. So I don't know, I would have to try it and kind of see how it was working for me if I were to do it that way. So that's another option that you can certainly try. And that would probably make a pretty full, like, when I say full, I mean the mesh would probably stand out relatively far from the wreath form, probably a little bit more than what I'm doing here, but not terribly, terribly far. It might be similar. But now I've got the white, so I am doing the same thing that I did with the red, but I'm working my way back down. This first step, I was really trying to figure out the best way to work it back down without covering up the red and having a bunch of X's go, red and white X's going through here. So I eventually did opt not to cut across, and instead I cut straight down. So you're going to see I've got my bumps going from left to right there, and now I'm just working my way straight down and doing it that way. I'm letting that red be that filler in between the two rows, and just bringing that down along the side rather than doing the crossing for that first instance. And then I do bring it across once I'm down, because I feel like that's got to be part of the white stripe. I don't know if I'm making sense at all, you guys, but hopefully you can tell from what I'm doing here. For me, a lot of it is trial and error and seeing what looks good to my eye. So I encourage you to try different things and see what works best for you, what you think looks the best. So once I got that all done, I am going to pull out some ribbon. These are my Kirkland ribbons. This one is kind of a white blingy, I'm going to call it blingy ribbon. It's got really thick, like chunky glitter on it. So it's not that fine stuff that falls off everywhere. This stays put pretty well. And I am just using a piece of cardboard that I keep in my stash. It's got a 6-inch height, so to speak. So I'm creating 12-inch ribbons because, the front and the back, 6 inches. So in the loop, they're 12. Dovetailing the ends. Now, when I started to go to use this, I did find that they were a little bit too long. So I ended up wishing that I had used my 8-inch little cardboard that I have to create 16-inch ribbons, because I did end up cutting them in half. So now I'm working with 5-inch ribbons instead of, 6-inch ribbons instead of, I could have been working with 8-inch ribbons. When you dovetail it, it does become a little bit shorter, so these probably are closer to 5-inch. But I felt like they were working out better than it would have been if I had had them twice as long, because they would have just been sticking way far out from this wreath form. So if I had to do it again, I would use my 8-inch cardboard, which would have created 8-inch ribbon lengths, because I would have cut it at the top and the bottom on my loops, right? Hopefully I'm making sense again. And I would have done it with the 8-inch ribbons. But this worked out just fine. So you can see I'm just tucking it in. I basically pinch the ribbon in the middle, and I tuck that into the chenille stem, and then I twist the stem around it to secure it. I'm doing the white on white, and then I've got this red ribbon that I'm going to be using on the red areas, and this is going to be creating a little bit more texture, a little bit more coverage. It's just going to help to make the wreath look a little bit more full and finished. Once I have all the ribbon in, I'm going to twist up all of these little twist ties. So I kind of just twist them together, and then I'm using a paintbrush to twist it around. You could use a pencil, you could use a pen, you could use your finger, whatever works for you. But this just, for me, helped it move a little bit faster, just twirling it down and kind of tucking it in between the mesh. And that's it. Let me know what you think. DIY number 2. Okay, for this project, I have this Santa wooden cutout. It was something that my sister had picked up for me from Michael's a couple of years ago, actually. She'd gotten it on sale. It was originally 99 cents. It was 20% off. So, really great deal. I am using my Adirondack white chalk paint to paint the base, and then my plan was every other letter. And then I started coming in with my red to paint the other letters. And that all started out real well. It was all well and good until I got on the phone and was talking with Rich while I was doing this. And then I started painting the letters that I had painted white. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, clearly I wasn't thinking because I wasn't focused on what I was doing. And it took me a while to even realize what I was doing. And like right here is where I realize, you silly, you painted one that you weren't supposed to paint. So I was like, you know what, let's just move on and let it dry, and then I'll go back over it with white. I was going to have to touch up some areas that I had accidentally hit on the base there anyway. So once I had finished with my red, I did come in and touch it up, and then I painted back over that T. And that took probably 3, maybe 4 coats of paint, to be honest. So once I got that all painted white, I was ready for the next step. But yeah, next time I just need to pay a little bit more attention in the first place. So now I am taking a remnant of a Dollar Tree scarf that I had. The rest of this was used for little mini stockings from last week's video for the mini challenge. So if you haven't seen that yet, encourage you to go and check that out. But I've just got this little section that I am trying to figure out how large to make it. So I just cut down the section that I needed, trying to get those extra fuzzies out of the way. And now I'm going to kind of draw a triangle shape here, leaving the bottom open, because essentially I'm creating the shape of a hat, or attempting to do so. So once I had that cool, I trimmed off some of the extra fabric that was around the hot glue. You could also sew that. It doesn't have to be hot glued. And then I'm going to turn it right side out. And once I have that all turned the way that it needs to be, I'm going to use actually a little paintbrush to help kind of stick the pointy part of it out. Try and get this in the shape that it needs to be in. And then I went to my stash and I grabbed a scrap of my microfiber cloth from the Dollar Tree. It was like a microfiber rag, cleaning rag, and just trimming off a little piece that I can use for the base of my hat, making sure that I've got it the right length and that it's not fraying on the end there. And I'll just use some hot glue to tack this down once I figure out exactly where it needs to go. So, does not need a lot. You also want to make sure you don't end up gluing your hat opening together. So I'm just being careful of that, making sure that I'm not burning myself in the process, and getting this all glued down. Once I have that all set, you can see I'm just making sure that the hat's not getting glued together. Using a little bit more hot glue to finish that up and make sure that it's all set. And then you can see those little pom-poms that I have on my table. I'm going to be grabbing one of those to make the little pom-pom at the tip of the hat. I didn't show it, but I literally just sat the hat on the end, so it's kind of sticking up there. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue just to keep it from falling off or shifting, keep it in place. But that's going to finish this one up, and let me know what you think of this one. I think it's super cute. DIY number 3. All right, I have these little gift bags from the Dollar Tree and then a little wooden box, little box tray, wooden tray, that was also from, I think that was from, I can't remember if it was Michael's or if it was the Dollar Tree. Forgive me. I think it might have been Michael's, but I believe those were all like $1 as well. I'm using my Adirondack not chalk paint, Adirondack. Oh my goodness, it's not Adirondack. My Antique Wax by Waverly. That is what I was trying to say. I use my Antique White all the time, and I guess it's just stuck in my head. But this is the Antique Wax by Waverly. I got that all coated with a baby wipe, and now I am going to cut the edges off of my little sack. I am after that Merry and Bright piece. I will not be using the back section, so I will just save that for another time. These are super cute because they're made out of like a fine burlap, and fine, by fine I mean it's like tightly knit or woven, but I'm just going to fray the edges here. I'm going to do this on all 4 sides, just grabbing the strings to create just a frayed edge, just until it's about looking the way that I want it. I didn't have a huge edge on it, only because I didn't want to cut into the letters, the print. So then I was just kind of tidying up the edges a little bit because they were kind of not even. Just lining this up on here. It's going to be a little shelf sitter. I started with my Mod Podge. This is just the matte Mod Podge, and I was going to paint the back of it and then put it down, but I realized that because it is burlap, it was going right through the burlap onto the piece, so I opted to do what I'm doing now and just applying some of the Mod Podge and then putting the piece down. And now I'm just going to go over the entire surface of the Merry and Bright. I'm going to call it a sign for lack of a better term, but I'm not going over the frayed edges. I'm going right up along where the fabric piece ends, if you will, where it's still whole. And then all I have to do is dry it, and that's it. You could certainly decorate this more. I opted to go minimal. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Great, Tammy. I love this nail string art. So cute. And cute, Kathy. All the gingerbread, all these sweet faces. Thank you both for sharing. I would love to give you a shout out as well. All you have to do is send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. Okay, I've got some more of these little gift bags from the Dollar Tree. This time they have these little Christmas trees on them. And I'm going to cut out the Christmas tree shape. I'm leaving an edge of about, I'd say maybe a ½ inch going around it. My plan is to stuff this. I wasn't thinking very clearly in the way that I conducted it at first, but I did salvage it and ended up decorating it a little bit extra in the process. So I've got it cut out here, and you're going to see what I end up doing. I'm flipping it the inside out, and then I'm going to use my hot glue here. So I've got my parchment paper down so that I don't glue it to my table. And I am just going to run a bead of glue all the way around the outer edge. The bottom of it is still together. I didn't cut that piece. I was moving a little bit slower than I should have there, so some of my hot glue did end up cooling faster than I could get my fabric down, but you'll see I show a fix for that in just a minute. But that's where I realized, you silly, you didn't leave an opening to stuff this. So I am trying to salvage that at this point, and the little trunk is just, yeah, it is not wide enough an opening for me to be able to stuff this or even flip it right side out, which is necessary before I stuff it. So I'm essentially cutting the bottom part out. So it's a good thing that I left, that seam allowance essentially around, because now I'm able to cut this out, get the hot glue out of the way without damaging the design. And you see that the side of it there is still open. I considered opening that up more and stuffing it from that side, but I had already cut the bottom, so I decided it was better just to keep going the way I was, and I was going to fix the top, the side. And so I do that by reheating the hot glue with my heat gun. So I heated that up, melted the hot glue, and then I was able to press it back together again. Problem solved. Once it was cool, I was able to go ahead and flip it right side out now because the entire bottom is open. I'm going to be using a little paintbrush again, the opposite end of the brush, to stick in there and get my piece fully turned right side out. And so once I had that all set, I was ready to start stuffing it. So I just used some fiber fill and I stuffed it until it was the way it needed to be. I'm using my paintbrush again to kind of tuck it into that point, making sure that everything is filled, and then coming back with my hot glue. Now, because with the hot glue and this particular fabric, it was going to be too hard to turn the fabric in to create a piece that didn't look like it had a seam like this, so now I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to camouflage this somehow. So I went to my stash and I got these cute little miniature presents that I think are also from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna glue a couple of these under my tree. So I got the first one down, and then I decided I needed to trim up the base of the trunk a little bit more so that it's not gonna show from beneath my little gifts. And then I applied the second little present here. So I've got my little gifts under the tree. And then I also went back to my stash and I got these little star ornaments you've seen me use on other projects. In this instance, I am creating an ornament. So this is just going to be the top of my ornament, and it has a little hanger built in. So it's perfect for my needs. I'm just going to glue that to the top. And then I'm going to grab some cord. That's the word I was looking for. This is from the Dollar Tree. I've had it in my stash for a little while, and I am going to create a hanger with this. So it's gold, and it's got kind of the same look as that star. So I created a loop that was probably a good 8 inches, maybe 10 inches long, and I've folded it in half, tied the bottom. And it's too thick for me to run or force through on my own, just threading it through the little loop at the top of that star. So instead I've got a thread from that piece that I trimmed off the cord because it was kind of unraveling. So I'm using that. I looped it through my loop and then threaded that through the top of the star. And I'm using it to pull my cord through that loop, kind of like a needle threader. So, and there you have it. I think this is super cute, but I would love to know what you think. Cute little tree ornament. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the project, remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know what you think and what your favorite project was. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.